Welcome back to Mages and Murderdads, the best show dedicated to the games beyond Baldurs Gate. And now we're playing Planescape Torment, and this will be the last time I mention Baldurs Gate in the intro. I'm Cameron, and I play the Nameless One.
And I'm Danny, and I play the Nameless One.
We're in Planescape Torment, and there are not different characters. You don't create your character.
We really goofed it with this format, didn't we?
Yeah, we did a bit of a goof. But you know what I think we're gonna do is I think we're gonna refer to our Nameless One as Ticklevar and Balthazar.
Maybe. What if this one's not Balthazar at all?
What is it then?
I think you know.
I don't think I do know. Is it Drisset Do'Urden?
Well, do we ever get to name the Nameless One?
No.
Never?
No. It's the Nameless One.
Oh, it's Stan Malone.
Is that one name in the world of fantasy? Is that one long name?
No. It's a first name and a surname.
So now we're playing.
What is this game?
44.
What is this new game?
What do you mean? What is this game?
You said 2 hours ago, hey, get this game. What is it?
You think I said this is the fiction you're spinning up here that I told you 2 hours ago what we were doing, and I've pressed you into doing so?
Yeah, sure.
Oh gosh, we're playing Planescape Torment, which is a video game that came out around the same time as Baldurs Gate and Baldurs Gate 2. I believe it might be in the middle. Let me look it up. I should have looked this up before. Yeah, we thought 1999. So Baldurs Gate is 1998. Icewind Dale is 2000. Baldurs Gate 2 is 2000. So Planescape Torment's right there in the middle.
Okay.
Made with the Infinity engine, the same basic system that operates the other games.
So in terms of chronology, what we're looking at here is a game that perhaps could have learned some lessons from the initials Baldur's Gate, but the Baldur's Gate 2 and the kind of everything past, obviously Siege of Dragonspear. These are games that took place that were made after Planescape Torment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if there's lessons to be learned, then Baldur's Gate 2 would have learned lessons from this game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing to learn. This is purely subtractive.
Mm-hmm. We really goofed it again, man.
Going back in time. No, I think it is perfectly fine. But we aren't playing that edition from 1999. We're playing the Enhanced Edition that came out last year?
Thank goodness.
2017?
Yeah.
I believe is when it came out.
You know what I really don't enjoy? I don't enjoy playing like some 480 resolution on my big beautiful monitor. So thank goodness for the Enhanced Edition.
I believe that I played this game in like 1920 1080 in 2012. Yeah, it has to be 2012. I played it then with a widescreen mod, I played the GOG, the GOG.com version of it, which worked really well, except there's one screen in one building that you have to go into late in the game.
No.
And it had like some sort of video file or GIF that played in it, and if it was displayed on the screen with the widescreen mod, it would just straight up crash the game. And so
Brilliant.
I had to pixel by pixel move my character across the screen in such a way that it would never be displayed. And that's how I beat the game.
Good.
The last time I played it. So yeah, so we got some widescreen options here. Glorious 1920, 1080. We get some much better UI options that kind of hold tab to see containers and all that kind of stuff from the Baldur's Gate games is in this. And just, general quality of life stuff.
Yeah.
So it's good. I guess before we talk about the setting, are you playing with any other options, any other weird stuff?
Oh, yeah. So I think with the Enhanced Edition, it included a bunch of options. Some that were included with the base game, some that were not. I turned on max HP on level up because that's what we were doing with Baldur's Gate, even though I have a feeling that in this game, with the type of character that I've created, that's not going to be as relevant. Also, I turned off gore because who needs it?
What about Al Gore?
He had his chance.
I know. And God, he's in exile in Reykjavik now, huh?
Yeah. One can only hope. That's better than
Reykjavik
the
Accords.
alternative. That's only alternative.
I know, gosh. Reykjavik or Wyoming, right? Golly, poor Al Gore. Al Gore approached Jill Stein at a rally. Gosh, tell me about this. So I've played this game before.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've booted it up.
How did you miss this game back in 1999, or whenever you played all these other Baldur's Gate games?
I think I was kind of turned off by the cover art.
Really,
Yeah.
big blue guy.
Big blue guy with like messed up skin, like a bad, like really needed to see a dermatologist.
He's got like cool dreadlocks, or something. His hair's doing stuff,
Yeah.
and you were just like, not on my watch. I need a big skull and a circle.
Yes.
That's my game. Well, okay.
That's what happened.
That's not what happened to me. I bought it. I bought it at a Walmart for like
You
$10.
saw that blue skin and you were like, sign me up.
I was like, ooh, it's like a weird blue Robert Smith. He looks like he's doing stuff over there.
This is like some straight up like preteen Kunzelman just in the Walmart aisle, just slapping his knee when he sees the Planescape Torment, that oversized box, like it's a box the size of a.
No, I got my copy probably like way later than that, and it was like in a jewel case.
Oh,
in like the bargain bin zone. Yeah.
We've messed up as a society because you just don't see bargain bin. You don't see bargain bins for PC games anymore.
I want you to go to a Best Buy and show me the PC game section. Like, let's start there. But yeah, so this game I'm curious about. So I'm assuming that you watched the opening cinematic for this game.
I did.
So I just get some impressions. Let's get the Dany impressions.
Okay. I think the biggest impression is that I feel like tonally this is a very different game from the Baldur's Gate games. It feels like a break. Maybe not maybe tonally is the wrong word, but the setting it feels very different. It feels fresh to me. When I say fresh, it may well be because that I am just like that I am kind of how you say, I might be a little jaded on a lot of the aesthetic of the Baldur's Gate series. So I don't know. That's kind of my first impression, right?
Or what do you mean by that?
Let me
don't
see.
like it no more?
I think we talked about this a little bit, but I think that I had my fill of Baldur's Gate. I think I think that I was kind of maybe getting a little fatigued. There's some people on our various media forums that basically have told me that have told us, hey, maybe Planescape Torment is too similar to Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Maybe you're still going to be burned out, and this isn't like a big enough gear shift. I think that but with the cinematic, I didn't feel that way at all. It's kind of, I mean, let me give you my best recollection of the cinematic. It's kind of this first-person flashes of like memories, and I get the impression like I see this woman, and I'm like, oh, this must have been a person I was in a relationship with. There's like these kind of torture scenes. Is my memory correct here?
Yeah, there's like a dude who drowns, and then there's like a crossfade into him stabbing you to death.
Yes.
It appears. Yeah, there's a lot of like people showing up multiple times in multiple roles. Yeah. So yeah, it's like there's nothing like this in the Baldur's Gate franchise.
You know what? I will say one thing. Baldur's Gate 1 had dreams. You remember those dreams in Baldur's Gate 1?
Yeah, where it'd be like, you woke up sweaty, thinking of murder.
Yeah, or like the really trippy ones. And I wonder if those, I can't remember if those were Baldur's Gate 1 or Siege of Dragonspear, where you remember being on a boat that's like on an ocean of blood.
Yeah, that's Baldur's Gate 1.
Yeah, that's Baldur's Gate 1.
But those are like text only.
They are text only. Yeah, you're
reading
totally
those
right.
between
But
chapters.
if those were made into cinematics, maybe you would get something similar here. But there's a scene in this cinematic where you walk into a room filled with skulls on shelves, and then the skulls all turn to you.
Yeah. Yeah, someone put some money. They were like, we need to show people all those things we wrote about in Baldur's Gate 1.
Yes.
Let's get on board. And I'm actually going to I didn't do any preliminary research for this, but I'm going to, go and look up, maybe see if there's like a GDC postmortem on this game. I'm going to get all the biographical info since I've played this game before and I have a pretty good memory of it. So that when we talk about these things in the game, I can be like, oh, here's a little factoid for you.
Interesting.
So I'll do that.
But the cinematic ends with the nameless one, the protagonist, the main character, stirring on a slab, and that's where the game begins.
He's like, he gets wheeled in and he's on that slab and boom.
Yeah.
He wakes up. And then we're right into the action. Very similar, I think, to the opening of Baldur's Gate 2 in Irenicus' dungeon.
It would be actually a similar kind of situation in terms of the nameless one, the protagonist has basically no memory of what came before, and if you were to play Baldur's Gate 2 without playing Baldur's Gate 1, which is how I played Baldur's Gate 2 the first time, you would have a similar experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like,
And
I've lost all my memory.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, at the beginning of Baldur's Gate 2, you can respond to all of those people by being like, I don't know who you are. I don't remember any of this, right? Which seems like they, speaking of learning or a genealogy here, seems like there's some level design or narrative design learning that's happening from this game to that game, which is good, I think.
Yeah. So the first person you talk to is a floating skull named Morty.
Is his name
Mort?
Morty or Mort? This is a good question. I think it is Mort. Like death. The Mort d'Arthur.
I don't know.
But I don't think anyone says it.
His character reads Morty though, right?
I don't know. But well, there's this kind of thing. Like, what kind of humor do you think it is? Is it Mort like he's like a sidekick? You know what I mean? And he's like a little bit scummy. Right? He's Mort. Mort. Or is he Morty? Is that fun-loving guy?
I think he can be scummy and still Morty.
I don't know. I don't know if I think that. There's like almost like Marx Brothers humor that's happening here. There's some genealogy to his writing. I've said the word genealogy twice now on the podcast. It's my quota for the entire rest of the series. But there's something here about the way he is written as like almost like Dustin Hoffman's character in Midnight Cowboy. Like this like streetwise guy who's showing you the ropes.
No, he definitely uses a lot of kind of colloquialisms, and some of which seem artificial, like made up for this game. But yeah, kind of streetwise, scummy, very horny.
He is he's the perfect skull for Twitter. Like there's a very good Twitter account to be made, and I am certain there's someone who is listening to this that will make this account
Before you do.
Oh, I'm never going to make it. But, you just have Morty, and you put the little skull in there as the icon. You name it Morty, and then it's just normal ways that people talk on Twitter.
No, I think it would be
their love
Morty,
of
and
anime.
then it's a bot, and it just like every day posts a picture of like a dead person or like just a skeleton, and Morty talking about how hot that woman is.
From like
just a skeleton.
It's like from the Victoria and Albert Museum. And
Yeah.
It's just like some random skeleton. Be like, oh, I can't help it. Because he's that kind of like gross, right?
Yeah, legs for days, things like that.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe femurs for days. I don't know where that humor lands.
Yeah, I'm never gonna. I don't think I'm a master of either of those
Formats.
types of humor. Yeah, neither necrophiliac humor nor like Andrew Dice Clay sexist humor from the 80s. That's just a Venn diagram that I'm not quite good at. But so he shows up and he's like, "Hey there, I'm your sidekick now. It's very clear from the way that I'm being presented that I'm your sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, oh shit, there's a memento-ass message on your back.
Yeah. It comes out, it's kind of organic too, like, because he's like, man, you are cut up something fierce. You know, your chest is pretty cut up, but man, there's a whole novel written on your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which gives you this, like, you can kind of see it on the character model. I don't know how well you could have seen it in 1999, but this idea that, like, the nameless one, this protagonist character, is covered in scars and wounds and burns and all kinds of stuff and tattoos, right? Like literally his life is written on his body.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, you know, I guess the biggest piece of useful, I don't know, like paper is the back. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so the back has a message on it, and the back basically says, don't lose your journal and find Farid.
Yeah.
And where's the journal?
I can't find the journal.
There's no journal.
There's no journal. I'm
journal.
asking about it. I ask everybody I meet about my journal.
And yeah, they don't know what's up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really great, like writing and design. Like already there are things that are happening in this game at this very opening conversation that I think are
so much more interesting than anything
else. Yes. I hate to be that person, but
I said it for you. I didn't want you to have to bear that burden alone.
but right, like the creativity of this, the way that it's hooking you into this like longer narrative, like we know immediately that we need to go and find a journal, and we know that we need to find someone named Farid. Like,
and it's not that your backs had written on it, "Go find the journal." This is what's clever, right? Mm-hmm, your back said, "Don't lose that journal," and you begin the game having already lost it.
Yeah, and you're like, "Oh gosh, dang!" Like something has happened, and I really appreciate that. Just from, I mean, this game gets talked about even today as like one of the crowning achievements of game narrative, and I don't know if that's 100% true. I don't know if I'm as I don't know that I would evoke this every time, but damn, it is pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. So yeah, so we got to do those things. We got to find Farid, and we got to find the journal. And really that means escaping this place that we are in called the Mortuary.
Now, Mort, I'm going to use 50-50, Mort and Morty.
Okay.
Just for maximum annoyance. But Morty tells me a little bit about the mortuary. He says, yeah, this is kind of a place where this group called the Dustmen like accumulates corpses and I like, you can, if you go deep enough in the conversation here and with a conversation later, you can spend like 20 to 30 minutes just like reading the lore. There's a real lore dump here if you want it. If you don't want it, you don't necessarily have to do it. But is it just me, or do you get a Gene Wolfe vibe to this universe?
Oh, I see. So you're talking about the Shadow of the Torturer.
Yes.
With this kind of like pseudo-scientific or scientific/fantasy kind of people who are concerned with death, because that's what the Dustmen are all about, right?
Yeah, and there's this ritualistic religious component to it, but they're also interfacing with like the greater economy, as we later find out about like what Farid is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot there for me, at least.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe this is a good place to talk about it, right? So if Baldurs Gate is in the Forgotten Realms, which is just like swords and shields and spells.
Yes.
And, you know, thieves and backstabs and all the kind of stuff. Planescape is in, like, A, the Planescape setting, but B, it takes place in the city of Sigil, which is a city that, it's called the City of Doors, in fact. And it is a nexus point for connections of the planes. So you can get from, you know, the Forgotten Realms to the Planescape D&D setting into Sigil, and you can use Sigil as a way of getting to the Dragonlance setting, or the elemental plane of fire, or wherever the Solars live, and the Nine Hells and the Abyss, and all kinds of additional like massively proliferating planes in the middle. Like it is the uber or the meta level of thinking about fantasy settings, fantasy and science. And so there's like spaceships that fly around, but they're magical spaceships and they can travel from the planes. And there are people with like big soul expending machines here. And I think that's right to like note the lineage from Gene Wolfe to here, because I think there's no world in which the original Planescape, pen and paper setting, pencil and paper, whatever, that is not directly borrowing from Gene Wolfe's kind of intermingling of all of these different things.
Yeah, and we have dealt with Sigil, or at least Sigil has been mentioned on this podcast before.
Yes, absolutely.
There was a little quest in Baldurs Gate 2, I think kind of an intergalactic bard troupe may have mentioned Sigil. They were intergalactic travelers. The Gith Yankee or Gith Zerai might have mentioned Sigil. The planar sphere, definitely. There was somebody from different. There were folks from different planes. I don't know if any of them talked about Sigil specifically, but
yeah. There's one because the halflings are from Dark Sun.
Yes,
the knights were from Dragonlance. They were from Dragonlance. But yeah, so I don't think Sigil in particular, but we have this idea of the multiverse, in the planes already.
Which what this means is that in this game, whereas in the Baldur's Gate, you're like, yeah, you're dealing with Forgotten Realms, and maybe occasionally we can snip it, we can like put in some weird stuff because of Sigil, because of the existence of Sigil. We're beginning in the Sigil home turf, which means anything is game.
Yes.
Like we are fully immersed in the weird world of anything.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the place where D&D, like, where it stuffed the 90s in some ways, right? So, like, anything goes, the kind of, like I was talking about, like angels and demons and devils and all kinds of stuff like that, but also, like, the Sandman comic book kind of stuff, right? This, like, emotive, long-lived, the Gothic, the kind of high romantic, all these like different story types that don't really fit necessarily in Dragonlance, which is like the highest of high fantasy, or the Forgotten Realms, which is like grittier kind of fantasy stuff, like on the ground heroes, as it were. Like Planescape is the place where you can be a interplanar rogue, right? Who's just trying to like make ends meet, kind of like pseudo cyberpunky kind of stuff. And
or you could be like a sentient slime in a jar, and that's one of your party members.
Yeah, and that's your boss. Like the sentient slime like sends you off to steal things from Ravenloft and bring it back here or whatever. Yeah. Like it's designed to radically open up what D&D is doing, and it kind of hooks into pre-existing stuff like Spelljammer that we've talked about before. If you heard me on the Idle Weekend podcast like a few weeks back, on the Waypoint podcast, I delivered a giant promo for Spelljammer. But yeah, it's just like the weirdest stuff. So we are going to be seeing over the course of this game just the strangest things. I'm really excited for you to get to see these. I think you'll really dig them.
I'm really psyched. I have to say that just my trounce around the mortuary was like a real breath of fresh air in terms of theme and like the kind of stuff that's going on. But so after we talked to Mort, we basically figure out there are a few doors I can't open. Like I can't open this door to a stairwell. So you kind of just have to start working your way. The mortuary is kind of a circle, and there are these kind of pie slice chambers. And you kind of you can work your way in a clockwise fashion. And after a couple of these chambers where you see more slabs, and it's weird because it kind of has this torture vibe, but it's not really torture. It's kind of just like storage. It's more clinical than torture,
Yeah, because what the Dustmen are doing that we kind of like pick up over the course of this is that they receive dead bodies from the city. and then they recycle parts of those bodies, and then they raise them from the dead as like servants. And when they're not doing that part of it, they are just like annihilating people. They're giving them what they call the true death, which is like they can't be resurrected, they can't be brought back to life. And it's kind of like a religious mission for them.
It's an oblivion or a nirvana or what have you.
Yeah. I think I actually have written down here in my notes about that exact thing, but maybe not. Maybe I don't have that written down. I don't have that written down. Never mind.
But one person that gives us a huge lore dump, if you're willing to kind of play conversation with him, is this scribe named Dahl.
Yeah.
And I love this conversation because when you initiate conversation with Dahl, Dahl's like asleep or in a trance of some kind, or perhaps doesn't hear you because Dahl might have a hearing problem. And Morty continues to say, hey, don't talk to this person. And you can like keep going and like and keep like trying asking him questions. And Morty will interrupt you a few times, and after several times, the guy will pay attention to you. It seems to me like it's totally possible to like disengage this conversation and heed Morty's advice if you wanted to.
I think you can almost. This is not 100%, but you can make your way to the plot necessary portions of this game and learn basically nothing about the world.
That's great.
If you so want. There is some wide-ranging ability, and like you were talking about earlier with talking with Mort about his like just getting the lore dump about the Dustmen and all of that kind of stuff, right? You can spend 10, 15 minutes in just reading every single question that that an NPC allows you to ask them. And for some of them, I mean, for Dahl, it's like 7 possible conversation trees to go down.
Oh, yeah. There are 2 main branches, and each branch has 4 to 6 possible answers, and you can go back and continue to ask, and your journal will update on half of them. Like you'll get actual, actionable intelligence, as it were, from a lot of those prompts. It's really cool.
Yeah. Unlike, the one line you get out of a conversation in Baldur's Gate or something.
Yeah.
But you can see already that... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so what would you kind of distill for us? What is like the big information you can get from Dahl?
So I think that the Dahl conversation is really good because he gives you like who you are, like the context of who you are. He calls you the restless one. Mm-hmm. And then through if you can, really move through the whole conversation with Dahl, he's like, yeah, you die all the time, and you keep forgetting your life, and you keep showing up here, and I keep talking to you. Right, that's and he kind of gives you the pitch of the game that that we'll find out later, or we'll find more about as the game goes on. But that like the nameless one is an eternal being or someone who is like short-circuited life and death, and that's a problem for everyone. Mm-hmm. And so it gives you this really great kind of way of thinking about the world, which is you can go into a scenario and. Unlike Baldur's Gate, where it's like, well, you go and talk to people and you find out who you think the good guy is and who you think the bad guy is, and then you figure it out from there. A lot of conversations in this game or scenarios that you go into, there are people there that already have a certain disposition toward you. And not you as like a powerful person or as a wizard or as a ball spawn, but you as an individual person. And you're making choices in the game, not necessarily just about like, do I want to be good or bad, but do I want to be the person I was before, or do I want to be a new kind of person? And that changes, I think, the narrative stakes of a lot of things. I think there's like something really powerful about that from a narrative perspective.
Which there are some parts of what you're saying that is familiar to most modern gamers if you played The Witcher or Skyrim, right? This idea of people might have opinions about you based on stuff you've done, right? And occasionally people might have opinions about you because of stereotypes, not having to do with stuff you've done at all. Like somebody might have bad, like they might be racist against orcs, for example, in Skyrim or what have you, right? But you're like this angle, right? The idea that you've lived lifetimes and done things, and there is a baggage that comes with that. That is kind of the really interesting novel aspect of this.
Yeah, and I think I think a game like The Witcher 3 is almost, it's not unthinkable without Planescape Torment, but I think that we really have to acknowledge the debt that it has, right? That The Witcher 3 is a game that says, hey, there are 2 games in front of this that are in continuity that have real effects on this world, but you don't have to play them at all, and we are going to ride around that in such a way that Geralt has his own identity and things that he has done, and you will be responding to those things, like real practical scenarios. I just think that like there's such a clear line being drawn from these games.
Yeah, it does draw me back to like the first 30 minutes or so of Witcher, when you like have conversation with those Imperial folks and they start talking about these events that you were engaged in. Although I think that Planescape kind of has this interesting advantage in that Geralt, the character, knows what those people are talking about, but I don't. Whereas in this game, the Nameless One does not know what they're talking about, and I don't know what they're talking about. So you have like some ludonarrative consonants there.
Yeah, I really like. I to some degree I like this solution of narrative solvency, I guess, more than I like the Mass Effect 1, 2, 3 import the save game model, or like Baldur's Gate 1 to Baldur's Gate 2, even though like choices don't import in between those things. In that like you have nothing to do with the thing that happened before in this game, right? You are purely responsive. Whereas in like Mass Effect 3, it's very powerful to know that you like helped cure the genophage or something like that. But I don't know, it feels like more intentional. It feels like you have access to that interiority, whereas here you don't. And yeah, and this game ends up playing with that in really cool ways, I think.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we kind of talk to Dahl, kind of the first Dustman we see.
Oh, I have one. Wait, hold on. I have one more thing to talk about Dahl. What I really like about this Dahl conversation is you can ask him certain things, and he'll give you like a vague answer, and within the answer tree to that response, you can push him on the same question, and it's only after pushing 2 or 3 times on that question that he'll answer.
Yeah.
Right, that like it's a real conversation. You really are having to kind of be like, no, what I want to know is this, and he'll give you a side answer, and you're like, no, I really want to know about where Ferret is, for example. And he eventually, I mean, that's one of the conversation trees here, right? Is he reveals that Ferret is like a corpse collector, and that the people in the mortuary buy corpses from him, and that's how you got there.
Yeah. So I think that that's interesting, just because it lets you role play somebody who's pushy. Whereas in Baldur's Gate, when I went through a line and they didn't answer the first time I asked, I'd be like, well, that's just not information I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of the gist of, like, the big stuff Dahl gets us is, we're the restless one, we keep dying, we can't remember. Ferret is some person who keeps dragging us back in. Either he dragged us in the last time, or he's habitually dragged us. And I think that I can ask, hey, what about my journal? And Dahl's like, well, if it's worth anything, Ferret probably has it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he does say something to that effect.
Yeah. Now, a couple more pie slices clockwise, and we meet kind of the next character that isn't just a zombie walking around. And this is Iveen?
Iveen, that's what I assume. Yeah, I don't like Irene, but Iveen.
And who is or what is Iveen?
So I really like this character. Even though it's like a side quest giving character, basically, right? This is like, you know, the dwarfs or the gnomes that own the Friendly Arm Inn in some ways, right? So one conversation character, or is presented to you as a one conversation character. But it's a tiefling, and like Mort explains to you that, like, because you can ask like, what the hell's a tiefling?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, somewhere in their family tree, someone had sex with a demon.
Yeah,
And
but
so
in coarser terms.
Yes. Yeah, he's kind of a dirty skull in that way. But yeah, so he's like, yeah, someone there. And so Iveen is like this a woman, I think, I assume, But whose fingers are like these long claws. They're
Yes.
inhuman looking claws. But she uses them to do like surgery. She's repairing these corpses to then turn into zombies. And so you talk to her and she like doesn't respond to you, and Mort's like, we don't need to talk to her, but you can keep pushing and like stand in her way and eventually touch her. And she turns around and she says, hey, bring thread and bring embalming fluid.
Yes.
And you can kind of wander around and find thread and embalming fluid and bring it back. And you give it to her, and then she finishes up her job on this little zombie that she's working on. And then she turns to you and she like finally looks at you, and then you get this whole like additional little conversation tree.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew about this like conceptually, but yeah, I want to hear what you...
It kind of, the first thing snuck up on me in that I may have clicked through it a little too early but I scrolled back and kind of got the gist of it, in that basically when I talked to her and after I did that quest, there was a pseudo flashback and I remembered something from a previous life. Specifically, I remembered that I put something in the rib cage of a skeleton or of a zombie. And I got experience points. And I was kind of told, oh, you remember something from before. And I think that's very interesting. This kind of... You haven't played Pillars of Eternity. There's some consonants here in some Pillars of Eternity stuff.
Yeah. So there is... Yeah, so these are called echoes. Like it's a mechanic... I guess mechanic is probably the best way of expressing it. But it is a feature of this game. And yeah, the next Torment Tides of Numenera game, which to some degree, I think we should play this game and then immediately play that game.
I was just thinking that. I think that we should kind of go with the franchise irrespective of chronology, right? The same way that we did Siege of Dragonspear, quote unquote, we did it out of chronological order, but in thematic order. So I think that we should stick with that.
But it leans very hard into the echo stuff. And like echoes come up a lot over the course of this game. This is like a very common occurrence. But in that game, it is like every 2 minutes you are getting an echo of something. And it introduces a huge number of choice trees. And it actually there is a set of resources. You end up with like different resources that allow you to access different echoes of a past life. So it leans even heavier into it because you have some sort of like understanding of how to access it. It's you're literally accessing previous versions of yourself, so it kind of makes it more of a mechanic-y kind of thing.
Yeah.
But echoes are very cool. So we find out that we put something inside of a zombie that's labeled 42. And then she does an additional thing too, which I think is very cool. She like starts looking at you, and then she's like, "Oh, like you're all scarred up, buddy." She doesn't say this. She like talks in 2-word sentences.
Yeah.
But she says you're all scarred up, and then she says, I think, let me look here. She says only hivers would do that kind of work, which is like this world building one line. Like I didn't see the word hiver anywhere else. I don't think in this mortuary.
I saw the word hive one other place.
Okay.
If you go deep with Dahl, or actually it may have actually been with a character you didn't talk to. That I'll talk about later. But yeah, I may have seen hive one other time.
But yeah, this is a thing that like I've written about this kind of storytelling before. Whoops, I'm running into my microphone. But and I've called it like evocation. In Destiny and in Star Wars, I've written about something that I've called the evocation effect, the idea of like kicking out to something that doesn't exist in the scene as a way of like blowing up the world. And I really felt that here, that she was like, you have encountered some other organization in this world that has done something to you, and that's really like to the side of whatever we're talking about here, but that's what happened. And then she like touches all your scars and fixes them. She I guess, unscarifies you with her fingers.
Yeah, she starts you can opt out of this at any time, it seems, and Morty is insistent, hey, this is weird. Or also he's making like sexual innuendo, like, are you into this? But she starts stitching you up basically and kind of pouring this embalming fluid over your scars, and if you like stay still and like allow her to do that work, you get like a little. It's another little quest, and you get an additional +1 max hit points.
Yeah. So there's like a mechanical. There's an interesting narrative payoff that there's like some sort of care that's happening here, that she's like giving you something in trade for what you did for her. And that like your ways of interacting with the world are very different. And yet you're able to like meet on this thing. And also, there's like a straight up mechanical payoff that if you introduced into Baldur's Gate would make it, I don't know, it would be min-maxy too much, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. It's too early in the game for me to know like kind of the implications that I've heard you say that this is potentially a very combat light game. So I don't know where I stand on that, but I think it's a very cool. All of the dialogue options I have been exposed to thus far have been very cool, like very interesting in a way that I have not felt in 44 other episodes.
Well, that's what I think is interesting too, is that I don't even think that Siege of Dragonspear hits this.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. But yeah, so then we have the option, there's more pie pieces, and we can go up some stairs. Right? Yeah, up some stairs.
Yeah, so you basically, when you go all the way around, you can go upstairs. We start on the second floor, and you can go upstairs. And it's interesting. There's this Dustman, and I don't know if you initiate dialogue or he just kind of initiates dialogue with you. And they see you, and you have an option of, they're asking, like, what are you doing up here? I'm like, are you lost? And you have an option of snapping this person's neck. I initially said, oh, I'm just kind of lost. Could you help me out? Could you help me get out of here? And he says, oh, let me get you help. And then bells start ringing and every single thing in the mortuary turns aggro.
Yes. Yeah, so you went with that option.
I went with that option.
Yeah, so I like that this game gives you two pretty deep narrative things, and then hits you with a straight up trolley problem. like as your first real combat encounter. Yeah, like you kill one guy, you kill a bunch of people, and you can steal his clothes. There's like a disguise mechanic in this game.
Yes,
you can steal his clothes. You can put them on, and presumably, if you had not done the whole world aggro here, you could just walk around and pretend you were a Dustman. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I think that you kind of reach a point of no return where once you go aggro, putting on the robes doesn't matter because the bell's already rung, right? So I guess you have to find a way to get an outfit before kind of you reach a point of no return. But yeah, interesting. I may go back and play with other options of overcoming this. You can very easily run away from virtually every enemy in this area. They're all quite slow. So even with all aggro, you can just kind of run around.
Yeah, the game is very clear. It tells you very early.
Morty tells you, he's like, hey, if you're getting hurt, just run away. Another option I turned on is always run.
Yes, same.
So I don't have to hold down whatever button it is.
Shift.
Yeah. So up in the third floor, there's all kinds of interesting stuff. There is a iron pry bar, which allows you to, which is just a weapon, and it also allows you to, God forbid, pry open locks.
Yeah, it is just a straight up real world Gygaxian simulationist idea, right? Of if you find a crowbar, you can use it to do things you would do with a crowbar, which is pry open anything and everything you get near.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
You can have a +5 greatsword and not be able to smash a door open, though.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate.
But once you have that pry bar, you can get an additional key here that opens, I guess, like, it's kind of a master key. It opens all the doors. And you can also find, like, a few charms, including, like, a curved bone finger of some sort. There is before I went up to the third floor, I actually met a zombie that you did not meet. He's actually in the room after Evine, and it's zombie 821, which I guess all these zombies have, like, numbers carved in them or whatnot. And you can talk to zombie 821, and in zombie language, zombie 821 asks you some, like, really suspicious, weird questions. And Morty kind of makes some comments, is like, this is kind of a little off. And eventually it's revealed zombie 821 is not a zombie. It is some living human dressed up as a zombie.
Just pretending he's undercover.
He's undercover, exactly. And you can completely ignore this character. You can get information from this character, like this character, like, tells you about the portals and tells you how to activate the portals. This character, you can pretend like you're a member of this person's sect, which I didn't really catch because it's my first playthrough. I bet if you play it a second time, you'll, like, know whatever faction he's referring to, something about Arcanus or something.
Okay.
And you can pretend you're a member of his sect and be like, hey, I'm here to relieve you. Give me your stuff. And he'll give you some supplies.
Oh.
Like, all kinds of interesting stuff. So I don't even think you saw that guy, right?
I did not. I was not, like, looking for things. And I also never found that zombie 42.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't really look.
The one that had the thing in the one that had the thing in the rib cage. Yeah, on the third level, apparently.
Did you didn't find it either?
I didn't find it. It was only afterwards on sorcerers.net, the location for all of your Infinity Engine game needs.
Sorcerers.net, you guys start paying us. You guys start giving us money. We run promo for you every time. But yeah, so you went back and after you did the level, you went and checked out.
Yeah.
Just to see what was up.
Just to see what was up. Sorcerers.net.
For all your seeing what's up needs. So I went around and I, like, gathered all this stuff, and like you were saying, there's charms in this game, which is kind of like the equivalent to potions in Baldur's Gate. Just you know, stuff that gives you fire resistance or, you know, whatever, more attack power, that kind of thing. Yeah. Sneakiness. But the last, I think, I guess there's two other things. So at the very bottom, the bottom floor where you're going to leave the mortuary, presumably. You can go into a big old room, and it is full of giant skeletons.
Yeah, big mega skeletons.
Mega skeletons.
That just wreck your face, just really eat your lunch.
Yeah, I've got like 22 hit points, and I was like, oh, you know, I fought a bunch of stuff, because I also, like, goofed up and got attacked and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, you know, I'll just, you know, I'll fight these things one by one. And they hit me, and it was like 11 hit points. 13 hit points, like, hitting me very hard, so I had to run away. So that's one thing here, and I was, like, kind of looking for the exit, and I couldn't find it. And then I found a ghost, like a legit ghost.
A legit ghost. I believe Dahl mentioned, hey, because Dahl mentions, oh, you're always getting other people into trouble. And I was like, what other people am I getting into trouble? And he's like, well, there's one downstairs.
Yeah, he says, like, that the people who travel with you often end up here. Which implies that maybe you are not the best traveling companion if they all end up in the mortuary. But yeah, she is interred, he says, here. And she actually shows up in that opening cinematic, too. There's, like, a ghost lady. And it's her. And her name is Dianara? Something like that?
I'd say the D.
Dianara? And she's a ghost. And she says all kinds of stuff.
Maybe Dayanara, like a deity. Yes. She recognizes me immediately. And it's interesting because you can kind of intimate, look, I don't remember you at all. You can lie and say, oh, I totally do remember you, Dianara. You can say, oh, maybe I remember you, but I'm not 100% sure. And she tells you a lot of stuff that you kind of learn from Dahl. She basically says, hey, you're dying over and over again. You're losing your memory. It's obvious that you're not only accumulating physical scars, you're accumulating mental scars because your memory is compromised here. And you can convince her. You can convince her to tell you about the future.
Yeah, she says, like, I know your fate. You know, and maybe there's some kind of stuff like she's pierced the veil because she's a ghost and she's dead. Something. But yeah, she says that she knows your future and she'll tell you if you make and I love this. Like, I think that this is super, super cool storytelling and, like, player choicey kind of stuff, right? But she says, I'll tell you your future if you vow to come here and either be with me forever or get me out of here, because she's, like, interred here. And you get a bunch of options. You get like 5 options, but the 3 critical ones is you can say, I vow to do it. You can say, I vow to do it. And, like, in parentheses, it says lie. And then it says, I'm not doing that. There's a couple versions of I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Some harder than others.
Yeah. Yeah, you can, like, straight up reject it. And I vowed, like, I truthfully vowed and said that I would come back and get it.
I did that too.
It just felt right, didn't it? But that's really good. And, like, presumably there's some sort of consequence if you don't do that.
I guess. That's the real interesting stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even if there is no consequence, the fact that it is indeterminate at this point, if there is or not, is good. Like, the mystery of what will happen if I have lied to her, if I just manage not to do it somehow.
Exactly. Like, it's the idea that it's kind of the issue with, like, the Until Dawn games. It doesn't even matter if it matters. It's just our expectations around that mattering.
100%.
So I think that is also very cool. And if you hadn't picked it up until this point, I think Dayanara will kind of fill you in on how to get out of here via the portal.
Yeah, she says there are portals all over here, and the problem is finding the key. The key can be anything. It can be a memory. It can be a stick. It can be anything. Oh, she also repeatedly calls you my love. This may be important to say. And the strong implication is this is, like, your romantic partner from some previous life.
I think there's some responses you can give that reciprocate the sentiment.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. To be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she says there's portals, and I just wandered around and one, like, exploded in front of me, just appeared.
Yeah.
I wasn't really quite sure how I triggered it.
It's just you have to get close enough, I'm pretty sure. Like, I knew which area of the map the portal was going to be in, and I missed it for quite a while until I, like, hugged the wall.
Well, the weird thing is, like, what's the key to it?
The crooked finger, like this bone, the bone charm.
Oh, okay. How'd you figure that out, though?
Zombie 821 told me.
Oh, I see. Okay. But yes, you do that, and you go through it, and it, like, spits you out in, like, a sepulcher.
A tomb.
Like a straight-up graveyard district from Baldurs Gate 2 tomb.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit better lit, even. And then you come out of that, and you're in Sigil. You're, like, in the city. And that's where I saved the game and turned it off.
I turned it off immediately after the mortuary because I was tired.
And you like, open palm slammed this game off so hard that you accidentally deleted your footage. Is that correct?
I corrupted the footage because, like, OBS did not close properly.
Which is how hard he turned this game off. So you've probably seen my footage looped a couple times at this point.
Yeah.
And that's why. Now you know.
Just play the you'll edit in the opening cinematic both at the beginning of it and when we're talking about it. And then several times at the end.
And just, like, a bunch of beautiful beam footage in the middle there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh gosh. Well, are you excited about digging into the rest of this?
I am excited. I am very optimistic that I don't know if it was a Redditor or a YouTube commenter or somebody in the Discord, but I'm very optimistic that and I believe that they might be wrong. I don't think that our kind of fatigue vis-a-vis Baldur's Gate is going to carry over into this franchise.
Yeah, I hope not. I certainly don't feel that way right now.
Yeah.
Just some general kind of stuff. You can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/rangedtouch. You can, of course, see this video and other videos if for some reason you're not on YouTube right now at youtube.com/rangedtouch. You can find our Patreon details down at the bottom of in the description of this video. If you want to support us, for $1 a month, you can get our newsletter. And for $5 a month, you get an additional podcast. We're about to record that podcast right now. After this, you're going to get all kinds of cool, fun information that comes out. There's going to be an additional podcast in the Range Touch Network or additional show. Check out our Twitter for information on that. I don't want to spoil anything here. Thanks so much to John Fio, and hold on, let me pull up the rest of the information. I don't have it in front of me, but we have a brand new theme, as you absolutely heard at the beginning of this episode, and you'll hear it again at the end. But it is made by Audio Sprite, aka John Fio, and Gina Moffat is the vocals on that. I think the song is very good. Have you listened to it yet?
I have. It is very good.
Yes, it is.
It keeps getting
good.
So when you this is maybe inside baseball. Maybe we'll save it for the Patreon podcast.
Okay.
If you want to hear me ask Kunzman questions about how he arranges the music and how he prompts it, please give us $5 a month.
Oh yeah, that'll be. You know what? In that podcast, I'm going to talk all about how I commissioned the themes for this show.
Yes, the technical details.
Minute by minute, I'm leaking all the emails. Here we go, Citizen 4. I'm doing the Lord's work. But no. So that. And thanks to Silverskin for the cartoon versions of us that will continue to appear on all these things. I think that's all of our collaborators. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. Next episode will be out in 2 weeks.
Tune in. Buckle up.
Buckle in.
Ciao.